streaming live.
Streaming live. We should be live. And
Awesome.
setting up your webinar. So it's not giving. This is what we do here. And then we check our pages and we're like, oh, yeah, there we are.
Oh, okay.
Surprise. Okay, are we live? Are we live? Let me get to my spot here. We are live. We're there. They're seeing us now.
Awesome. All right.
All
It
right.
worked.
Yes. I
Yay!
know. We've been having so much trouble with Facebook Live. It's working, and I'm so glad. So welcome everybody. This is Conversations to Raise the Collective Conscious. I am your host because apparently I started a show. My name is Renee Zukin, and I am passionate about everybody getting to do their inner work to, see the change in the outer world because that's the only way it's going to happen. We all got to dig into our own crap, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
Uh,
Great.
how's that for an introduction? Yeah, let me share my slides here. Let me get on the right page. It's been a day of technology. It's a beautiful thing. I'm very grateful for technology, especially when it works.
Yep.
Oh, not. See, there we go. There we go. All right. Today's guest is Frances Lacuesta, and I'm so excited that you are here. Our topic today is your emerging story. We all have stories inside of us. Some are the old stories that we continue to tell ourselves, and some are new and changing. Frances is a certified transformational coach and trained mindfulness teacher. She is also the founder of Big Impact Story. She helps conscious women entrepreneurs who struggle with getting their voices heard to stand out and be seen using story-based marketing so they can connect with the people they're meant to serve, make a big impact in the world, and grow their business. Thank you so much for being here, Frances. I am so excited to talk to you today.
Yeah. And thank you also, Renee. I am equally excited that I am here and Facebook. Oh no, I mean, Zoom is working,
Yes, yes,
right?
Zoom is working.
And yeah, so thank you for having me here. I mean, it really is this conversation I feel that, or this show that you're doing, that is a show that
Sure.
you're doing, you're really elevating, the conversation. And I feel that this is, essential, especially during these uncertain times. And it's a good way to wake people up and, bring us into a different kind of level of consciousness. And it's no longer just, about ourselves, but it's really going from me to we as a collective.
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
happy to be here.
Absolutely. From me to we. That is
Yeah.
so good. That is so good. Well, we talked, well, it was a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and it was such I was so energized by your story and how you have come to really work with story and understand it in such a way that it helps not only your clients but your own your own life and
Yeah.
how you are able to put yourself out there, which has been really it's been really inspiring to watch and to see this take place. So why don't you take us back kind of to a little bit of the beginning and where did this importance where did the story for story come to you?
Okay, so, where do I begin? Now I'm not gonna tell you like my life story or anything like
Right.
that. But for me, I was initially when I came into this, at least transformational work. About 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, I was certified as a transformational coach, and I was working on doing more for relationships. So because I had my own you know, um, story like that I've been carrying around me for such a long time now about my own relationships, romantic and otherwise. And I was able to work through that woundedness. The healing process took a while, and I thought to myself that, hey, you know what? I went through this and it worked, and people out there might also be wanting to do this kind of journey, and the way towards healing. But soon, I also realized though that when I really look back, um, what I felt was where I really came from. So I'm originally from the Philippines. And when I was 19, I was in college. And during that time, I was, that raring college kid, and just anything and everything is possible. And I didn't have any kind of like, limiting blocks, like, that I can do this, right? So I had a part-time job as a production assistant for radio.
Mm.
I was during the time taking up like broadcast communications. So I was like, okay, let me go do the radio stuff and all that. So along the way, I was there, and then one portion of the show had a radio drama. Okay, and then of course somebody was writing during the time. And then what happened was my boss told me that the script writer left, and she's now like looking for somebody to write. She actually didn't ask me if I know somebody. She just told me like, do you know how to write
Really?
a radio script, radio play? I said, yeah, because I just took that class. So I said, yeah, I do. So she said, okay, go ahead and write a radio play, and then let's record it and do it live. And that's what I did.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
after that, I was just like, really, what I've been doing was interview people, and then I extract their stories. And from these stories, I would make a radio play or a drama out of it. And I remember during that time that it felt like natural for me to do that I didn't feel like, there's some kind of like pressure or stress that involves. I just went ahead and do it.
That's
And then,
awesome.
when I
Oh,
was
you're
thinking
in the
back,
flow.
right? And I was thinking back, like, how did it become so difficult right now? When self-expression that used to be just like, hey, okay, I'm writing, sure, and it just flowed. But then along the way, it's like, how come? It's like I feel that there is that resistance. It's like just blocking me from fully expressing myself.
Mm.
And so I had this conversation with my sister about 4 or 5 months ago, and she told me, I know what you want to do. I know your intention of wanting to help others and serve others, but I don't, I can't put my finger on it exactly. What
Mm.
is it that you're doing? And I knew she was right because she saw the confusion in my face. Like, I was just out there, I was just talking and doing all this, like, Facebook
Right,
Live,
right.
she was interviewing and all that. But then it was like, I don't feel that the connection.
Mm.
Okay. So that's how my sister and I, my older sister and I came to that conversation. I was like, you know what? Story has been a huge, huge part of me. I mean, all of us, like, we are storytellers. But of course, it's like on my end, though, I pursued it. That eventually, I even graduated with a film degree
Mm.
because it just felt so, real and natural to me to be able to um, tell stories.
Yeah.
And so that's how I decided to like say, you know what, storytelling, and it also brings into not just storytelling as a way of like, hey, you know what, I have a story to tell you,
Right.
or a
It's not
book,
just
right?
entertainment
It's not
here.
like the
Yeah.
entertainment, yeah, but it's a story at the same time connected to the transformational work that I was doing, or I've been doing. And what are the stories and the narratives that we bring in our lives, and we carry with us every single day or every single moment
Yeah.
that we are. So that's how I came to actually do or touch on
Yeah.
storytelling.
To get to this phase. That's incredible. Well, and I really love how you talk about, the stories that we carry around with us and every day. It's not just, oh, I had this funny story that happened to me once, but it's really
Exactly.
about, who we are and what and how we became that way, and then and almost like whether or not we want to, and then being able, like, becoming conscious about what those stories are that we tell ourselves or that we've been, replaying sometimes over and over. Goodness knows I've been in similar situations repeatedly, and I'm like, wait a minute, you know,
Yeah.
and being able to sort of bring that to light, and how, um, how do we get to a point where we're able to see what those stories are and decide whether or not they're stories we
Yeah.
want to keep?
Yeah, that's really a good question. Renee, I want to mention also, like, why stories, right? So what is the importance of a story in a way? So one of my teachers, Jeffrey Van Dyke, he said that story is the language of change and connection. In the same way, spiritual teacher Ram Dass, said that stories are a powerful way of to transmit a teaching, and it's really about us helping us make sense of things. And it's also a way for us, it's a tool that helps us explain complex issues. And you're a teacher, so I know that you use stories a lot
Yeah.
for your kids or your
Yeah.
students to understand a complex issue or situation, right? So that's why for me, there is that power of a story. But like your question, like how do you identify it though in relation to your life and the stories that you create and you carry with you, right? So how do you identify the stories that you're going to tell? So here's the thing. We go through our lives, and like you said, we have that narrative that uh, it's what we call the monkey mind.
Yeah.
In the
I've
Buddhist
heard that
term, yeah,
before.
it's the monkey mind, because like the monkey, it jumps from one branch to another,
Yeah.
right? So it grasps on that and grasps on that. But the thing is though, if we allow that monkey mind to keep on jumping around and staying there, then it could um, affect us in ways wherein these monkey mind thoughts,
Yeah.
become like our set of beliefs, and eventually um, becomes an identity that we truly relate from. So if monkey mind tells you, hey, you're lazy, you're good for nothing, you have absolutely no worth,
Mm.
you have no contribution in this world. And if I stay in that realm, in that way of thinking, then who am I going to be, or
Right.
how is this going to influence my actions day to day, right? If I allow it. So you also mentioned about um, bringing the unconscious conscious, and that's what Carl Jung says, right? So it's bringing it out for us to be able to see. And the thing is, a good majority of us are like, walking dead, right? Like zombies,
Right.
just walking day to day in our lives. And the beautiful thing um, about, what's currently happening is it's slowly waking us up,
Mm.
that no longer are we in that space wherein we say that, hey, you know what, life happens to me, you know, but the but what about, looking at it in a perspective that, what if life happens through me, and what am I here for, and what am I here to create? I mean, that existentialist, the questions that come, because this time it's like, it's the reality, you're faced with it every single day, especially here in the States,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
wherever you are in the world. There's just so many things happening right now, right? So I want to go back to some of the myths that we carry around with us. Um, and that's why we hesitate to bring out or to share the stories that we have. Is the first one is, I'm not a storyteller. And I've heard that, several times. And I've talked with several women. And that's always the question, is like, I'm not a storyteller. Like, I don't know, I don't know what to say. And I want to bust that myth, because storytelling is in our DNA.
Yeah.
We live like, to tell stories, and every
Right.
day, if we listen to ourselves, we tell stories all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, sitting around the dinner table with the family,
Exactly.
out, with, friends, that's what, we're swapping stories about our lives and what,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And the second one is I have no stories to tell.
Mm,
And it's because also that we have this notion that if we tell stories, it has to be those big, epic stories, right? This heroic stories that we heard and watched on movies, and we heard, and people who have gone through these heroic big stories, of course, and we listen to them, and we are inspired and moved by their stories. But then there's also that separation, and that hesitation in ourselves, because, oh, wait a minute, I'm not like her. I don't have that. I didn't climb Mount Everest.
right,
You know what I mean? Like, or I didn't run the marathon, or win it, or
right,
something
right.
like that,
Yeah,
right? So again, I wanted to bust that myth that it has to be a big story. It has to be a big heroic story, right? But it doesn't have to be, because um if we learn to identify with the stories that are lying dormant within us,
mm,
and waking up to that, and making that, and allowing that to bring that out in the open, then we don't know what can happen. We don't know what can change, no matter how you feel, how small your story is. You
right,
don't know whose life you're going to touch and change.
right. So
Yeah.
finding that that it doesn't have to be some big fancy thing that's happening, but when you get to the point where whatever those stories are that really are the part of you that can become the thing that helps you transform into whoever it is that you want to be.
Yeah.
So do you find that a lot of the people you work with are resistant to being open to telling that story? Or like, there's a vulnerability there, I would assume
There
that.
is. Yeah, and I totally can relate to that too, because I mean, you don't just open up, to anybody. Right? So there has to be some sort of some sort of a warming up
Mm,
period in there, and allowing what comes out of that, what will emerge
mm,
in that. So of course, as somebody, as a coach, there is a process that we follow, right? So there is that set of questions that we ask. We talk to them, we interview them if they are ready, right? To Because it's also that, are you prepared to face, to face this, whatever it is that's stopping you from living your full potential? And not everyone is ready to take on that challenge. But if you are, and if you're willing, then the possibilities like open up,
mm,
right? So yeah, it's in terms of the inner work, because that's what we are doing here too. So storytelling is really the inner and the outer work, right? So inner work is that recognition and identifying um the old limiting stories that you have about yourself. And once you identify that, and the outer work is bringing it out in the open, it could be in a form of a creative pursuit, like in my case it's a film, or writing for those who are writers, or artwork for painters, right? Or artists. It can be in any form, because like you said, I mean, everywhere we go there's story. Like just looking at somebody, you already have stories in your head about that other person. So it's like that. And also, what is essential when you uh, try to identify that story is the empathy, that you bring out the empathy, because I want to care about you, and in
right.
the same way I see myself in what you're going through. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The stories are like a mirror, right? It's that
exactly.
outer work, is the mirror to those who you can help from, you know,
Yeah.
telling your.
Yeah. And if you notice, like for the clients at least, Like they are also like the same as you. Like you call in these people. And I remember my mentor, Catherine Woodward Thomas, and she said that, as change agents, as as coaches, we are like, we are Pied Pipers, and storytellers are Pied Pipers,
Mm.
because if you tell a really good story, and if it's powerful enough, you bring in this people and they follow you,
Yeah.
right? So that's why empathy and connection are
Mm.
important elements of storytelling, because I mean we all experience love, we all experience pain, we all experience anger, right, and suffering.
Yeah.
And when you tell me a story, again, even if it's not like the big epic ones,
Mm.
but if you tell me a story about your love for your pet, right, or your love for your daughter, even if I don't have my own child, but I understand because I have nieces and nephews,
Mhm.
that a child is a child, right? So you bring me in your world and I relate to you.
Mm.
And that's how um as change agents in this world, that's how we bring people into
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah. And it brings it, I like to think that it brings people together too, and finding that
Yes,
common thread. Uh-huh.
yes, like
Absolutely.
that certain kind of connection.
Hmm. Oh, I love it. I love it. What do you think about, I don't know, I mean, just in general, when, um, I think about the stories that I carry around with me, or the stories that are in transition, especially right now. There are so many stories in transitions that are broader than, just our personal lives. Even though, everybody's personal lives is kind of in an imbalance
Mm-hmm.
at this point,
Yeah,
in one realm or another, whether we're talking about, um, our careers or our families or our health, or
yeah,
the larger systems of government and the larger systems of, education and all that. um but as we're we've talked about, at this time we are in a place where we're being forced a little bit to look at those stories,
yeah,
um and to see how they're not working. um and then, what do we do, and that's different for everybody. And like you said, you have to be
yeah,
ready and willing, to look very clearly
yeah,
at your stories in order to transform them. So,
yeah.
I don't know that I necessarily had a question there, but this
But
is what
I
I'm
totally
thinking about.
get, yeah, I get what you mean, and I think it's a beautiful question or a statement, because 5 months ago, when everything happened, right, when this happened, we were forced, right, to stop,
Mm.
and without without warning.
Yes.
So our lives changed in a snap, right, and more so for some people,
Yes.
right. And so, in that sense, we are also forced to come face to face with our own mortality,
Mm.
right? And the fear, the uncertainty, that anxiety, that and when I look back and say, oh my gosh, like the having to we need to go to the grocery, we have to maybe we don't have food. There's gonna be a lot of these things, we gonna so the panic inside,
Yeah.
right?
Very real.
And it goes for all of us, I think. Yeah. And so, but what do you do when in moments like that, and you don't you're we're also forced, some of us are forced to be alone,
Yeah.
right? And for those who are with our families, it's coming face to face,
Mm.
right? And
Yes.
be with the people that maybe even we realize we don't know them, and
Yeah.
this is the time that we get face to face with them, and spend this moments with them, and it brings out the best and the worst in us.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
realized that too, right?
Mhm.
And in moments like I remember there was a time I was just sitting down. I mean, I usually go home and visit the Philippines because my family, my parents are still there, and my nieces and nephews are there, and I miss them so much. And I was like, I won't be able to visit them this year, and I just get to talk to them. Thank goodness for technology,
Right.
right? That I get to see them. But then there's a deep, deep sense of longing and sadness,
Mm.
and that wonder, that when do I get to see them again, right? And for some people who have lost their loved ones, like what, I cannot imagine how much pain
Mm.
they are going through or they went through. And so in moments in this of despair, um, what exactly do you do? Right? For some, it could probably just like way shrug it off, like whatever, and then maybe turn into like what a drink here, right? A smoke there, or the refrigerator,
Yeah,
right?
I may have a drink
Sugar, yeah,
in my
sugar.
refrigerator for the night.
And I've done that too. It's like, oh, I'm gonna eat.
Yeah.
But then again, and like through these months of just going in and being able to see, are we even advancing, do we even have progress, and it's really very slow towards that, right? So I've come to practice these two things, and that I feel are an important process, well, at least for me, and I want to share with you. And first is really to be able to ask powerful questions,
Mm.
right? To ask how, because this time, sometimes we just say, we just make statements, right? Like we
Right.
just like, okay, I hate this crappy life,
Right.
or
Yeah.
my niece wants to obliterate 2020
Right.
ever.
Right.
My 9-year-old niece, like, oh, 2020 didn't happen, you know? But then it's like that. It's like, but we want to just say, okay, I want to, like, in denial
Yeah.
of, some of us are still in denial of what's been going on. But what if, we ask questions instead,
Mm.
right? In trying to find the answers, we ask questions, but not just any kind of questions, but questions that can bring up answers that we never thought were
Mm.
there before. So questions like, what does happiness mean to you? What does it mean to be happy? Or questions like, what gives my life meaning and purpose
Yeah.
right now? Or if in moments when you feel like really in sadness or desperation, what, what are these teaching me in this moment? And or what response is being asked of me
Mm.
at this time? And this I learned, this process of inquiry I learned from my mindfulness practice, and it's about real to be able to go in and feel
Mm.
in the body, um, where, and pinpoint exactly,
Mm.
what you feel.
Yeah.
And so in moments when you're elated or happy, right, what does happiness feel like in the body? So it also allows you to really just come in, and happiness for me is like my chest wanting to burst, right? My, my breath, like, it's taking
Yeah.
my breath away, and it's just like a tingling sensation all over. So it's like that, and it's really going to be able to, it's up to you if you want to journal,
Mhm.
or just sit in silence.
Yeah.
And that's the second one, sit in silence, and learn to embrace the quiet, no matter if literally around you is noisy.
Yeah.
So find that stillness within. And I remember, one thing, or one story that I have is, I do yoga. Okay, I do yoga, and there was a time a year ago that I had to go through therapy, and because my back has been bothering me for a long time. And each time we needed to do core work, the
Mm.
core. And I was like, why does it need to be the core? I mean, really, what about core? It's my back, duh, my back is the one hurting. What about my core, right? I'm not here to like have abs or something like that. But then I asked the physical therapist, and she told me that because when your core is strong, then your balance, you have more balance and more stability. And in the same way in yoga. So my yoga teacher, Palm, would always like tell us, teach me that, or teach us, her students, like about finding that center, that ground. And that is that going deep, listening, and allowing what's to come. And that's the story, the emergence of whatever story that comes, whether or not it comes, it doesn't matter.
Right, right. And
Right.
not judging it.
And
Yeah.
not
Whatever's
exactly,
coming
and not
through.
judging it, and not judging. It's just that's it's like a tea bag, when you
Yeah.
steep it in water, you just leave it there,
Right.
right? And then right, and then it comes off like
Yeah.
tea, that right. So if you leave it for long, though, it gets bitter,
Mm.
right? So it's also about balance and finding
Yeah.
that sense of balance. And because I believe in also that we have this certain connection with the divine. And Sarah Blondin, the meditation teacher, she said that we have an umbilical cord to the divine. And if we allow ourselves to kneel down and allow ourselves to open up to the light, and your story will come. Like, we don't know, right?
Right.
We don't know, but it might just be a vehicle for that, for
Mm.
you to open up to it,
That's
to
beautiful.
whatever comes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming, that finding that center and you know, being open and allowing, regardless, obviously, of the chaos around
Yeah.
you.
And
And
it's challenging,
yeah,
very challenging.
yeah.
Yep.
And I think, we talk about often with, mindfulness and others, forms of meditation
Yeah. Yeah.
or therapy, there's, what are the things we can and can't control? Like that continues
Right.
to be the question. And I think the stories are one of those things that we have control over. What are the stories
Yeah.
that allow us to be who we are, and what are the ones that, you know, um, aren't doing that, and how, and to really, I mean, I love the way that you say, to really look at them, because they have some very important lessons
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. And the thing about storytelling is that you follow an arc, right? I mean, and the actual story,
Right.
right? So the hero starts off with what? There's a problem that needs to be solved. And
Mm-hmm.
along the way, he meets a guide, and who gives him a plan, who trains him, Star Wars, think Star
Right.
Wars,
Yes.
who
Yes.
trains him, right, to beat Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a process of transformation there. And the important thing that ties it up, it really is the conflict. Without the conflict, it's whether it's internal or external, there's not going to be a story. So that story is going to be boring,
Yeah.
right? So Star Wars is not going to be a hit,
Right.
right? So that's it. It's like our lives too. That's why we are so what's this? Well, that's why we love movies,
Yeah.
because it transports us into the world that is similar but also different
Yes.
from us. But here's the thing, and one reason why I actually took film was because I can change the ending. I can do whatever I want. I can write any stories that I want. And it's pretty much the same thing about life.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is that we feel like we're boxed up, right? That because, of course, of the conditioning that we have, when we were kids. And that brings me also to that process of going back to the conversation of how do you bring out the story also,
Mm-hmm.
right? That what how do you bring out the emerging story that's within? And the process there is really to be able to identify the patterns.
Mm.
So these could start when you're probably like what really very young, right? It could be as young as like what 3, 4, 5 years old. And let's say for example, when you were like 5 years old, and then you saw your father leave and never to return.
Mm.
And the question there was, what meaning was I making when my father left?
Oh
But at
yeah.
5 years old, I'm too young.
Right.
I'm
Right.
too young to understand what exactly happened. But I made it about me. And that story I carry, right? I carry with me until now. And all decisions and all choices I made in my life base is dependent on that. And on my end, the story that I've carried with me was I'm not enough. And the wounding that I was what I had to go through was my relationships. There are several in a span of my 40 years of existence. They didn't work out because I carried with me the story of like I'll never be good enough for them. And they're gonna leave me
Right.
anyway, right? They're gonna be like abandon me, and these men are emotionally unavailable, not ready to commit. But I made it about me,
Mm.
right? So I also became like emotionally unavailable, or I overgive, I overcompensate because of the fear that they're going to
Yeah.
leave me.
Yeah.
So what are the patterns of your life? Right? So mine is like men leave, men don't choose me. Um others have it better than me. Others
Mm.
have enough, and I don't. And life is not favoring me. That was the story. So what about you, right? So what is that? What are the patterns that you see? Because these
Right.
patterns are the evidence that you collect, and you believe it, because of
Mm.
course it's true, because it happened, right?
Right. 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 Oh, the patterns are the evidence we collect.
Yeah,
That is that is amazing. And so yeah, it's right here. It has to be true,
you're
you
right.
know.
But then again, Byron Katie, who did created the work, she would challenge that and say, is it true? Right? So when I say I'm not enough, is that true? And that's the questioning again, the powerful question. And I say, is that true? um yes. Yes, in what way?
Right.
Right? No, in what way? And then when you start unraveling, when
Mm.
you start writing, oh my gosh, it's not really maybe, is it true, is it not true, right?
Right.
And uh after that, when you identify the patterns, um you are able to now bring out this story of breaking free,
Mm.
because it brings out that okay, so the patterns bring you the story of your woundedness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's how I'm going to relate to you. Okay, so if you tell that story,
From the woundedness.
yeah,
Yeah.
from the woundedness, because I can feel pain, right? Maybe at some point in my life someone left me too, right? Or maybe my father did, or did something,
Right.
right? So I can totally be in your shoes. So that's the story of yeah, your own woundedness and brokenness. Now, are you going to stay in that story? That's
Mm.
where the old limiting beliefs, like your identity or your false identity, stays. But in this emerging story, right, or the new story that you're going to tell, what are you going to choose to tell? And this is where the story of breaking free comes in. And so with my story of I'm not enough, I'm not man don't choose me, they always leave, etc. That's what happened pretty much.
Right.
But my um and that peak, that point of transformation was in a moment when I decided in my life that I'm not absolutely going to allow myself to be in any more relationships that are going to undermine,
Mm.
my own um my potential.
Yeah. Yes.
And right, so that's what when I made a choice, and that was one of the hardest decisions I made in my life, of turning back in that relationship because I felt that I didn't deserve
Mm.
more than what I have. And when I did that, that was my transformation. Okay, so if it's an arc, it's a transformation story.
Mhm.
But it didn't end there,
Right.
right? It doesn't end there. So what happens there? So after that is going to be the denouement. I don't know if I
Mhm.
pronounced that correctly, but
Uh-huh.
it is that, right? And then it's, what did I do after that for me to have a new life,
Mm. Yeah. What?
right? So what I do, I looked within, I studied, I sought mentors, teachers, and I placed myself on the road to healing.
Mm.
So it's, even if it's a work in process, because that's what life is. That's who we
Yes.
are, right?
Always.
We're work in progress. I mean,
Yes.
yeah. So those two, and then when you have that, the story of the patterns, the story of your the woundedness, and the story of your breaking free and that freedom, then that becomes your emerging story,
Mm.
and that's how you bring in when it comes to change.
Yeah.
And when you have that story of empowerment, then you bring in people. I can relate to you, and I can see the change in you.
Mm.
So that's where it all comes.
Oh, that's beautiful. And then, the the connection to others who see that change in you, and then, fuels the
Yeah.
desire in themselves. Well, I want, not necessarily I want what she's having, but I want, I don't want to sit in my own, fight with my own stories or my own, problems any longer. And
Yeah.
here's an example.
Yeah.
I can,
So no longer a victim, right?
yeah,
So it's an empowered story that comes out, and that's what is, I feel, that is emerging in a lot of us.
yeah.
But
Agreed.
yeah, but then sometimes it's hard to, like, what's going on with me, right? And we can't put a finger in it. So it is a process.
Definitely. Well,
Yeah.
and it's not just like, okay,
No,
I figured it out.
not at all. It's
Because
probably
that's
your
what
whole
it's going to
life.
remind you. Yeah,
Your whole
it's still,
life. It's going to be that.
exists in there, but it's like I can do something different with it now than I
Yeah.
did before,
Right.
which is the beautiful part.
So I would just want to share uh a quote or a part of a lyric from lyrics of a song from Leonard Cohen. So a singer songwriter, is also a poet. And I think it's been quoted a lot in this, but here's it. It's ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
whatever it is that you're going through right now, wherever you are in this journey of yours, your hero's journey, your shero's journey, you are where you are supposed to be, right? And um, you don't force a butterfly, to come out, right, of its
Yeah.
cocoon. So honor that place and that space where you are, because you get there, wherever that is, or wherever that is actually now. The now.
Right. Right. Oh, that's so beautiful. And thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.
Like we can get so turned around, in the muck
Yeah.
of all the change and the grief and the heartache. And
Yeah.
it is, It's a beautiful thing to remember and to understand that it's that it's that crack, it's that
It's the
imperfection
crack.
that, bring in the light and the ability for us
Yeah,
all to change and have compassion for one another and ourselves.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
ah, well, that's a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah.
I am so appreciative of you being here
Of
and
course. Yeah. And I'm like deeply grateful again for this conversation. And I want to share actually a poem, if you don't
oh,
mind.
love.
Which I think is a good way to end it in a
Mhm.
way. So this is from John O'Donoghue, and it's called For a New Beginning. And I can give you a copy, or I can share with you
Yeah,
the link to a poem, to this
that
poem.
would be great.
And I thought the first time I heard this, I thought it was really beautiful. And so it is here. For a new beginning, in out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge.
Mm,
For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness grow inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight, when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you'll be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. Isn't that beautiful?
oh, that is so
Super
beautiful. I
love,
actually
love, love,
teared up a little
love.
bit
I
down
love
there.
this poem.
Yeah. Yes,
Right?
I love the link to that. That is gorgeous.
Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for
Mm,
your soul senses the world that awaits you. So,
it's out there.
yeah, it's out there. Or it's in there.
Yeah, right. Yes,
It's in here.
it's in
It's in
here. Yes,
here.
I don't have to go out there to find it. I have to come
Mhm.
back to myself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, wonderful. Yes, please share with me the link.
Yeah, I will. I will share with you this poem. And I actually like put this like somewhere that I can read back
Yeah,
again and again, remind myself.
yeah, that's beautiful. We all need those reminders.
Oh,
Oh, this was so wonderful. Thank you so
you're
much.
so
And
welcome.
thanks to everybody
Thank
listening.
you everyone for listening.
And if you have any questions or want to
Yes,
reach out to
please.
Frances, we'll put all her info there in the comments, and it'll be in the YouTube
Yeah.
info there as well. This was wonderful to have you. I'm so excited for all that you are taking off with. I think you're doing some amazing work for this world, and I
You
appreciate
too. You too.
it. Thank you. All right, we'll
You're
see you again
welcome.
soon.
Thank you. Bye bye everyone.
Bye.